Now, another interesting thing that this study did was Now, another interesting thing that this study did was determine the sex of the individuals at the lake. And this is a really beautiful study that I think all of you should keep and show next time you hear a TERF on the internet say, "Oh, when they find your skeleton, they're gonna know that you were a man." Because with our cutting-edge modern technology of 2023, of the 27 skeletons found at Rupkund Lake, there were only to decisively determine the sexes of 2 of them. There was 1 confirmed male and 1 confirmed female, and then with that there were 4 probable males and 5 probable females, and 16 individuals remained completely unidentified. So take that bone powder in your J.K. Rowling pipe and shove it up your ass.
Trans person out of your competition and hold it here in the state of California.
We're live, ladies. Continue on. Go on. That was a great opener. Just opening right into that conversation, Carly. Go on.
No, 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 there's some news that came out of California earlier today. There's a surfing competition scheduled out there this weekend, and among the competitors at the Huntington Beach Longboard Pro competition was Australian surfer Sasha Jane Lowerson. Now, Sasha Jane Lowerson is a transgender woman, and she's won a couple of events down in Oz. And because of the rules of the International Surfing Association, she's allowed to compete. Well, the American Longboard Association, who organized the competition, said that basically trans women would be banned. Well, the state of California had an issue with that because the California Coastal Commission said surf competitions cannot discriminate based on gender. So they kind of put the governing body at an impasse. Either you have the competition, either you allow Sarah Jane Lawson to compete, or you don't have a competition here. So there you go.
Hell yeah. That's a win. I'm gonna call it a win. And from
Hey, I'll take
California.
that. I'll take that W. I'll be the
Yeah.
first to tell you. I'll take that W. And late breaking news coming in the Transposition Sports tonight. And later on the Transposition Sports segment, we're gonna see the latest weirdness from the state of West Virginia. It's getting wild. Also, more lawsuits were filed. The ADF is added again. And we're going to take a look at how the NCAA rule changes to come are affecting one athlete right now as they chase a championship dream and perhaps even chase history. So there's going to be a lot coming later on in Transposition Sports.
Heck yeah. All right. We got a main topic to talk about for the panel tonight. I'm gonna pull that right up here. This was something that Stephanie found for us. Let me see. And
Aren't you glad?
it's about Meta. All right. In June of 20, this is from 2023. Is this the right article?
Well, no, it's the right article. This is an update to the
Oh,
June of
okay, okay.
2023. It's an update on
Gotcha.
following
Okay,
up on this letter that more than 250 LGBTQ celebrities, public figures, and allies wrote to Meta, pleading with them and other social media companies. I'm sure that Shitter was among. I mean, what that thing with an X that's pronounced like SH. Yeah, was among them, is citing harmful, pleading with other social media to address the epidemic of anti-transgender hate on their platforms. And you know what? If you're trans and you go and look at your feed, you know what you're gonna find?
Transphobia.
Transphobia. It's kind of weird the way this works.
Even when I'm
But then
talking about
again,
bugs.
if you're talking about tooth decay, somebody's going to have something to say about trans stuff. Ridiculous. Anyway, the list of signatories on the letter, high profile names: Elliot Page, Laverne Cox, Jamie Lee Curtis, Shawn Mendes, Janelle Monáe, etc., and so forth. As this new report, this was released a couple of days ago, documents, 9 months later, such extreme anti-trans hate content remains widespread across Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. All of the posts below were reported by GLAD via Meta's standard reporting systems. Meta either replied that the posts were not violative or simply did not take action on them. As the trillion-dollar company's revenues soar, Meta continues to lay off critical trust and safety teams and relies increasingly on ineffective AI systems for content moderation. Now, this report going down, content warning. The following report includes examples of hate speech targeting transgender people. And we just want to look at, I think if you scroll way down, like wait,
Oh God.
down. There's
Yeah, lots of
posting of the Meta's policies. So these are their policies, right? This is all the way, almost all the way down.
Okay,
Meta's
I
policies.
was showing people
Everyone,
what is okay to say about trans people. I want people to see the memes and tweets and
right? Yeah,
Instagram
you
posts.
can scroll down and point out this content. Well, I
Yeah,
read what the
Jesus
policies are.
fucking Christ, it's yeah.
Everyone, according to Meta, everyone is protected from unwanted contact that is directed at a large number of individuals with no prior solicitation and calls for statements or intent to engage in bullying and or harassment. We remove, Meta tells their users, coded statements where the method of violence is not clearly articulated, but the threat is veiled or implicit, as shown by the combination of both a threat signal and contextual signals from the list below. Threat, a coded statement that is one of the following, indicates knowledge or shares sensitive information that could expose others to violence. Context, local context or expertise confirms that the statement in question could lead to imminent violence. The target of the content or an authorized representative reports that content to us. So if you look through, or if you want to scroll up all the way up to the top, each one of these is spells out the policy violation and the nature of the violation. So at the very tippity top of this thing, the very first one, targeting on the basis of protected characteristics, gender identity, with a derogatory slur. On the left, you see, this Christmas, be thankful that you don't have one of these freaks running around in your house. But if you do, we're sorry. That's right at the top. And then Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. That's the one on your right there.
Mm-hmm.
Is not family friendly. Now I don't know if this person is trans or cis, to be honest, but they're making a travesty of what may or may not be a travesty. Look it up, by the way. The definition of the word travesty and its derivation. It's ancient.
You got that nice slur in there. It just makes the
Man, yeah, Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is all about the trannies this year. This is on Facebook. This is in violation of a policy that forbids targeting on the basis of protected characteristics, gender identity, with a derogatory slur. Trannies. Bring back insane asylums for elusive trannies.
Yeah, and I hear that message on a daily basis in Twitter. So if you ever head out to Twitter, you're going to hear all about how the whole problem is close the asylums down.
A variation on the theme is another slur. It's like cartoon with an R and no, the R and the T switched and the CA dropped. And that circulated on 8chan, 4chan for ages and ages, and it's now in common parlance in some of the more interesting YouTube side chats nowadays. Policy violation. It Meta's policies with regard to the describes or negatively targets people without source. These things are forbidden by their policy.
And often law.
And yet they were all allowed to, like, oops, no violation here.
This getting down to where it's part of
I should shut up.
Their deeply held spiritual beliefs now is where we're getting into, guys. So they're deeply held spiritual beliefs. They just got to be protected. Those deeply held spiritual beliefs that it's a demonic movement. If there's a movement in this country that is demonic and that is full of the spirit of the Antichrist, it's the transgender movement. What? And he can say that because a deeply held spiritual belief, right?
Yeah, it doesn't
Oh,
have to be true if you really, really believe it. I do enjoy that Satanism one, though, because it makes it clear that this moral panic is identical to the satanic panic of days gone by, in that it's based on fucking nothing.
yeah. Let's see. Hail Satan, hail thyself. What the gender cult and Satanism have in common? Yeah, that they're both demonized by the right. Am I right, ladies? Uh,
I
is
guess.
our modern gender cult rooted in Satanism? It should come as no surprise that the rebellion against God, God's design for humanity, is satanically, and then carries on like that. So they're just allowed to say that it's a satanic movement, that we're the devil, that trans people are out to bring down the fall of Western civilization. Is the trans agenda in game pedophilia? Oh, the hard P word, right there on the front page, right?
And this is in violation of Meta's Tier 1 policy. This is supposed to be stuff that they automatically delete. Content targeting content targeting a person or group of people on the basis of their aforementioned protected characteristics with dehumanizing speech.
And I don't know who this is right here, but I know this is freaking Dylan right here, Dylan Mulvaney.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's probably the host, because she's got a migraine over all this madness.
And I want to say that putting Dylan Mulvaney's face up there with this word on the screen and a red outline, what does that tell you? That what's this thumbnail telling you about Dylan Mulvaney? Right? What's the message?
Yeah,
it's just going out about this public figure.
This is all about that groomer trope, you know? It's just right-wing rhetorical strategy to attack trans and LGBTQ people, pioneered, by the way, by Save Our Children. Good old Anita Bryant.
Anita, Phyllis Schlafly's best student.
Check out the trailer for our new documentary, The LGBT Terrorist. A new documentary. Maybe we got to screen that sucker.
Document.
I don't know.
I thought Lady Ballers was supposed to be a documentary.
It was.
I
but
know
it turns out.
It turns out that she can't. Just
it was a documentary on how not to do a document. It was a documentary on right-wing assholes that don't know how to do a documentary.
But
and who like to slap around women.
But you see, that's what they do. I mean, we already know this is what they do, and this is how they do it. This is this is who they are. Trans terrorism. See, they have to dehumanizing the victim makes things simpler. It's like breathing with the respirator. It eases the conscience of even the most unconscious and calculating violator. Michael Frandy wasn't wrong.
Well, there's a second factor to it.
And my little segment, I'm going to talk a little. In my little segment, I think if Bree graciously gives me the time, I'm going to talk about a little bit about the deceptive nature of people with this is their fundamental idea, who want to come in and debate the finer points of philosophy in various spaces where particularly secular humanists, etc., want to have these kinds of debates with theists. I want to address the idea that what this is bigots hiding behind God's skirts. Don't have a lot of stuff to say, but I don't have a lot of stuff to show, but I really want to make a couple of comments on just the whole notion.
Baby girl, this is your soapbox. Everybody's been always telling you, get off your soapbox, Steph. Well, you know what? We built you one. So,
and outcomes of the
didn't mean to add that. So yeah, if no one can complain about your soapbox here, because we built it for you, baby girl. We'll go back to that video in just a second. I just wanted to show you guys this shit that I found, because this is exactly the kind of stuff that shouldn't be allowed to be just posted on social media. So watch this.
LGBTQ movement that is and outcomes of the LGBTQ movement that is sweeping across the earth right now at lightning speed with the weight of a tidal wave, and it is bringing complete chaos and disorder to the planet and to our children. I want you to hear me. Where there is order, there is peace. Where there is confusion, there is destruction. I want to say once again, I am not against anybody. I do not hate anybody. I'm speaking against a destructive evil. And just because I disagree with the LGBTQ agenda and mindset does not mean that I hate you or that I hate them. I am allowed to disagree.
Yeah, that's been my whole fucking day, so.
Fantastic. I really enjoy that he's got Genesis 9:16 on his shirt, which is the passage where it talks about, I will see the rainbow and I'll remember not to murder every living creature on earth again. I don't hate
Ember
you.
is our biblical scholar for.
And $10 says that dude watches trans porn. I'll call it. I'll call it because let's face it. Hey, Pornhub did. Hey, they did the study again this year. What do people groove? What do people groove to? And they found in the Bible Belt, it was hey, there's a lot of trans in that there porn. I'm just saying.
Arkansas, number one. Arkansas,
of course,
number
of
one.
course.
It was like, whoa, what's going down in Little Rock?
And on a related note, we found that our old pal Glinner is a chaser. He accidentally outed himself by signing up.
That's right, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He signed up with his public username to a T-Girl's OnlyFans. And liked all of her posts.
See, that's
it's
what's
important to
bad
point
about
out that,
this. It's like y'all get caught.
Folks,
Y'all get caught in the web. Part of the fun. Y'all get caught with your hand in a cookie jar. They get caught.
I think a lot of folks don't know what a chaser is, or at least I encountered.
Oh, my segment today. They're gonna find out what a chaser is. If they don't know,
Okay, great.
yeah.
If you don't know, you don't know.
Watch
you're gonna find out.
Watch.
You
Breathe.
stick around for my
Learn about
segment.
chasers, sports news, and
Yes.
other fancy things.
Yes, we are gonna do the Daily Chaser today. Actually, we're gonna dive right into that in just a couple minutes here. So, but we still got more of this to slog through here for these next few minutes. So, make no mistake, the trans movement in this country is where mental illness meets evil. Do not affirm these delusions any longer.
I mean, it's kind of fair. I don't think people like this, I don't think their delusions should be affirmed any longer.
Yeah, that there's some kind of nefarious underpining evil that is out to get everybody. Yeah. It's silliness. It's superstition.
I also like that first comment in the screenshot.
And Meta's policies on this too. Do not post content targeting a person or group of people on the basis of their aforementioned protected characteristics with generalizations that state inferiority in the following ways. Mental health, including but not limited to mentally ill, retarded, crazy, insane. Tier 1. Do not post content targeting a person or group of people on the basis of their aforementioned protected characteristics with dehumanizing speech in the form of comparisons to or generalizations about certain inanimate objects and non-human states, subhumanity, including but not limited to savages, devils, monsters, primitives. Tier 3. Do not post content targeting a person or group of people on the basis of their aforementioned protected characteristics with dehumanizing speech in the form of comparisons to or generalizations about sexual predators. All
Thank
of
you.
these things got posted. All
Just
of these things got past the AI. All of these things were determined to be in the face of complaints okay to post on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads.
yeah. So I do want to thank Ember for pointing that out to me. I would have looked right past it. Both the comments here are freaking based. I just want to read these real quick. The first one says, "Man, this is the most backwards cash grab I've ever seen." And then the second one says, "Really, the right in general has been ramping up the demonization of pretty much anybody not them. Hopefully, you will meet the same journalistic end as Alex Jones met, sued and shamed for your hatred and instigation of violence." Yeah, the people who have brought violence on trans people, I'm sure there's a day of reckoning coming in court for them. Eventually there's gonna be some level of protection.
Fingers crossed.
Affirming a kid's confusion isn't compassion, it's cruelty. And then it says trans is a mental health illness, which is not, but it can be exacerbated by mental health or mental illnesses, and the social stigmas of being trans can certainly stimulate mental illnesses and aggravate certain triggers. But yeah, not in general. No. Of course, then you got this. This is just straight up freaking. This guy right here. This is anti-Semitism. I don't even like having that on my screen.
No, but it's worth pointing out. I assume this is from Threads.
Mm-hmm.
This is what Weimar conditions looked like, and it's next to it is what Weimar conditions.
How do we know you're not a billionaire pervert, Stephanie?
It is what Nazi propaganda in Weimar Germany looked like. And by the way, I'd like to remind everyone that the Weimar Republic, was actually a Nazi slur too. It refers to the Weimar Constitution, but the seat of government in Germany all throughout the period between the end of World War I and the beginning and the ascension to power of the Nazi Party was still Berlin.
Everyone needs a LGBTQ deliverance manual. This is conversion therapy right here.
Yeah, it ties into both conversion therapy and the whole demonology thing, because deliverance, of course, is saying you're infected with a demon, but I'm going to make a wish on a carpenter ghost to get the demon out of you.
Yeah, people are buying this and doing this to their kids. They're doing exorcisms on their trans kids.
Yeah, that shouldn't just be on Meta. That should actually be a banned book, because it promotes harmful things, medical misinformation, stuff that actually does damage. It should be in the same category as manuals on how to build improvised explosive devices. It's harmful. It does nothing but harm. And it's dangerous in the hands of the terminally stupid.
Here are Meta's policies. Hate speech policy. For the following community standards, we require additional information context to enforce. Do not post content explicitly providing or offering to provide products or services that aim to change people's sexual orientation or gender identity. That's a policy, and these things get posted. Unrealistic outcomes, ads policy. Quote, conversion therapy products or services. This includes, but is not limited to, products aimed at offering, facilitating conversion therapies, such as books. We're seeing a book advertisement here.
Mm-hmm.
Apps
of course.
And audiobooks. Services aimed at offering, facilitating conversion therapy, such as talk therapy, conversion ministries, or clinical therapy. Testimonials of conversion therapy, specifically when posted or boosted by organizations that arrange and provide such services. These are their policies, but there's so much window dressing because the policies are there, but the windows are being dressed by books like this and by people like this. And they're
Screenshot of
hurting
face.
people.
Yeah. Conversion therapy services. $109. This is services, right? Definitely selling. This is a book.
That's the discounted
manual.
rate.
Yeah.
And they talk about follow the money. Well, there's a great example. What's that? What's going on there? People selling books, people selling incredibly expensive courses to cure your children or what the fuck ever. There's all this talk about dehumanizing and making scapegoats and also projecting all the bad things that their groups are doing onto the scapegoated group. But here's the other half of it, is selling cures for this thing they've made you so afraid of so that they make buttloads of money. They talk about big pharma, but, as we've discussed previously, the total amount spent in North America on all transgender services in 2021 was $213 million. That's nothing to sneeze at, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to the money these fake ministries bring in.
I want to say look into something like GLP-1s if you want to see big bucks being spent in the pharmaceutical industry. If you want to see where the money's being made, I can show you where the money's being made in the pharmaceutical industry. And it's not in hormones. It's not in cross-sex hormones, as they like to reference them. It's estrogen and testosterone are not... they're not rare. They're not something that needs to be... that's extremely difficult to generate, right, or synthesize. So
yeah, we can mass produce them easily.
The things that are more difficult are pre-diabetic treatments and things like that. And I don't want to go into too much details about how they work, but I'm sure you've seen the advertisements if you're in the U.S. because over here we do advertise for freaking healthcare on your TV, which is fucking weird. But anyway, yeah, you'll see that. I don't know how I got on that tangent. Sorry.
Small interlude is, a lot of the people that are posting these sorts of things are are undoubtedly making the case to Meta that it's free speech. It's like you can't restrict my free speech. You're taking the side of the blah blah blah. It's like first of all, let's set the free speech issue aside. This is our place. I don't let people come into my house and plaster billboards around that are likely to insult my guests. I don't do that. And we don't do that here at Meta. That would be the response to that.
Yeah. I mean, look at this. Misgendering.
The other thing is people are free to express their stupid ideas. They shouldn't be free to expect no consequence.
They'll mock the suicide of. I don't know. I don't like the framing of Bubba, Bubba Copeland as a trans person because we don't know. We'll never know. It'll never be.
No, we do know, actually. Seth Andrews did a pretty extensive expose on Pastor Copeland. He was a drag queen. He was a cross-dresser.
Okay,
He's still
so
part of the LGBT community.
He was
but
cis,
he wasn't
though.
trans. Yes.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. So we know then. But they want to mock and ridicule someone's suicide. What do you gain from that? I guess what you gain from it is demonizing. Oh, they're all mentally ill anyway. We don't need to normalize it. They're all going to commit suicide if we do.
That's the subtext.
But also think about it. Look at how at one side mainstream media really doesn't cover these stories until, for example, this story was that expose that was a very, very good story, by the way. Reading just the inside of what was that. I believe this person was at the very least the egg was cracking. I believe that. I believe that this person was trying to figure a way out. And that's something that happens for many of us. I mean, I'm pretty sure that all four of us on this news magazine can attest to the fact that it's a long and sometimes winding road to get to where you want to go, or more accurately, to get to where you feel you need to go. I mean, that's one thing, and honestly, I think those are stories that aren't told enough, and that's no knock on the focus on young people, because young people are the most vulnerable of the most vulnerable, and they have to be protected at all costs. The younglings, as the late great Monica Roberts would call trans youth, they have to be protected. But I think
May her
lot
memory
of
be a blessing. What a wonderful person she
oh
was.
yes,
Oh my God.
and we certainly could use her spirit now, and I know that a little piece of her spirit's in all of us in one way or another. But one story that I really think gets lost in the shuffle, unless it's a relatively big name, celebrity, whatever, are stories like ours. Those of us who we probably knew something was up, but we had no vehicle to pursue it. We had no avenue to pursue it. We had no avenue to really look at it. We grew up in times that had no vocabulary.
That's true.
It just wasn't there. And for many of us, it just wasn't there. I mean, growing up in the Midwest as a kid,
Girl, I hear ya.
there was no vocabulary for this. There was no support for this. And even if I could fully articulate my reality, I know that articulating my reality would entail a great deal of risk and a great deal of downside. I mean, let's face it, what is one of the cardinal rules of childhood? Don't get beat up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get beat up. We do what we do to survive. So
I want to take
very
this
much,
opportunity.
I feel for that person in Alabama, because there but the grace of God go I.
I want to take this opportunity to express my own personal thanks to Jimmy Snow and the line for allowing me to inject a little bit of maturity into a very young lineup. You know, I've been on the Transatlantic Call-In show and made some of these exact points. You know what? Nobody's given a roadmap to the way to their journey of self-discovery, and some of us take a longer time than others, but every single one is a course that one plots for themselves. And just know that we know your struggles and have been there.
And it is a very nautical journey, isn't it?
It is. It's not a roadmap. It's not a. If you're gonna be a landlubber, it's a topographical map, and if you're gonna be a sailor, it's a course.
Oh, it is a course, and there's rough seas, and there's choppy waters, and
hurricanes that take you by frickin' surprise.
yeah,
No shit. I hate those. Stay away from those, kids.
and they're the sharks like the ADF and the Heritage Foundation in the water.
Yeah.
Oh, Heartland Institute.
And there you are talking about maturity. Come on, look at you, bring some maturity to this young lineup. I mean,
well, we are a mature panel of trans women, for real.
Yes, we are, and you know what? And you know what? I like that.
You're my tribe.
No knock against the Zoomers or the millennials. I mean,
They've taught me a lot. They've taught me a lot
yes,
about
they have.
that's
true.
They've taught me so much about and brought back so many memories. It's the same sort of thing. It's wonderful to have so many smart.
Am I the token millennial here?
No, I'm one too.
Okay, yeah, I thought Ember was
Wait a
close.
minute. So we gotta. So So we have two millennials. I'm an Xer.
An Xer and a boomer.
I'm
a boomer. Okay, and then I'm
There we
an
go.
Xer.
But we are the mature generations of yeah. There's even as when it's come is
Mature,
even at
that sounds mature. That sounds so much better than old.
yeah it does. Because
I
me
am-
and
I-
Ember are
I-
both on the elder end of the millennial spectrum. I'll say we're I think you're first year millennial, I'm third year millennial. So yeah,
So I wonder what
We're
year
vintage.
what year defines millennials?
1981.
Okay,
It
19.
depends on who you ask. It seems like every chart is different.
Well,
I go with 1980 because that's when I was born, and
Alright.
I wanna.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
very-
my sister's the opposite way. She's 1980 and she wants to be an Xer, so she's like, no, it's 1981. So that's why I drew the line there, because I was respecting my sister's wishes to not be a millennial if she didn't want to.
There you
yeah.
go. If you want to, the closest to a technical definition I've ever come across is you're a millennial if your first presidential election that you were old enough to vote in was the 2000 election.
2000 election. Okay. My first presidential election I was old enough to vote in was 92. So
Yeah. All right. Well, we gotta wrap this section up. Actually, but we got through most of this. Here we got some calls to violence and things like that is just ridiculous. Eradication.
eradicated.
Yeah. Literally showing violence against.
No, I'm surprised you don't have Shelley Luther there. Shelley Luther, the teacher in Texas who ended up running for Texas House of Representatives, who said, I don't want transgender kids in school because we can't make fun of them.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a bunch of people. Who was it? The Utah governor, I think, who said we can't allow the new Title IX restrictions to go through because it strips us of our right to bully trans kids.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Hey, it needs to. I recently heard someone call out to say, you people are the reason why we need to bring bullying back. Just in the last 24 hours, I've heard that message about trans people and leftists and anybody that's not evangelical, pretty much. So yeah, bring bullying back to put us back in our place. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna pass the torch to Ember to close out because I believe we're probably keeping Ember up a little bit tonight. But what are your final thoughts on Meta here?
Obviously they need to do a hell of a lot better. I mean, it is a gigantic company, and they've been using outsourced slave wage labor to do community post reviews for years and years and years. The AIs clearly aren't cutting it. The human reviews weren't cutting it before the AIs took over. They have the money. They have a fiduciary obligation to their shareholders to fix this problem before they get sued for a crap ton of money, because it's just a matter of time until something happens because of it.
All right. How about you, sports ladies? What are your final thoughts on Meta here? Who wants to go first? You're both so long-winded, it doesn't matter. You're both going to give me a presentation that I can cut out and make a little segment with. Go, Carly.
This is not surprising because the fact of the matter is, when you have rules that are built by cis people for the comfort of cisgender people, this is what you're going to get. And most people are rather comfortable with transphobia. Most people
unless they're laughing at us.
Yeah, and not only that, it pays.
Yes, it does.
It pays. It pays. So when like the beauty of capitalism, we can be sure that well, this is gonna be costly. It won't be costly as long as it's bringing in the dollars. I mean, these people selling books against policy, but who's publishing the books? Is it Regnery Press? Who's funding that? If you follow the money all the way through, I mean, This is a billion-dollar corporation with a guy who owns it who doesn't give a shit. Any way to make money is a great way to make money, and the people who get hurt along the way be damned. Why even fucking bother? Why even have these policies? What you're doing is this is part of the trick to keep people with some sense of dignity on these platforms. Oh, we were opposed to this stuff, but how many of those people see this stuff? Unless they happen to know someone who's trans or part of the LGBTQ community. How many people realize the daily barrage of stochastic terror that is hurled in our faces, literally, and people are making money off of it? Why is it that a channel like this, albeit we've just started, why is it a channel like this has 138 subscribers, and a channel that pumps out bigotry, hatred, 24/7 has 6 figures? Why is that?
Oh, Matt Walsh is over 2 million now.
Yeah, the daily, you stack the Daily Wire all together, and how much of an influence they have, spanning, because the different hosts will appeal to a different audience, and that's their format. They got Ben Shapiro appealing to the Jewish American. They got Matt Walsh appealing to the Catholic American. I think that there's another Catholic guy there too. But anyway, they've got somebody for everybody who wants to be a bigot, from any angle that you wanna take. So have at it. Yeah, and our voices don't get lifted up. We're trying. We're doing our best. Spread the channel around if you're watching.
We literally have to lift ourselves by our bootstraps collectively as a community, because there isn't a billionaire corporation that will benefit off of us telling our side of things. There's nothing. There's no billionaire benefactors behind PragerU that could benefit from us existing the way they can from propping up Dennis Prager. There's no Jeremy Boring making millions of dollars a year off of people like us the way he does off of Matt Walsh and Ben and Michael Knowles and all the rest. It's a grift, the whole thing, and it always has been.
And there are lots of small-ish or smaller yet still popular YouTube channels who make this their business model.
There's more every year.
Make this their business model.
All right. I hate to break up the party, but ladies, we got to get moving along. We went 20 minutes over on this segment, but I love this conversation. We've gone deep. We've got our claws in it, and I know at least the last few 24 hours or so, me and Steph have been dealing with a bunch of crap. So it's good to vent about transphobia that gets thrown in your face. Anyway, so at this point of the show, this is where Ember generally leaves us because she has to work bright and early in the morning. But we will have more Ember coming in the show after I do my segment. So stick around for that. There's going to be more Ember, and then after that, there's going to be more Carly, and then after that, there's going to be more Stephanie. So don't go anywhere, because it's not just going to be me. Okay, it's going to be a whole panel of. The whole panel here is going to have more content to throw at you, so don't run off. All right, I'll see you ladies in just a bit.
Good night.
All right, let's move on right over into my solo section. Hello, and welcome to the Transposition Weekly. I have some comedy to go over with you today. Do you like comedy? Because I grew up with stand-up comedy, right? I grew up watching, George Carlin, and my parents were really into Cheech and Chong. So I grew up watching stand-up routines and seeing the jokes that people would make about other people, about themselves, and I'm feeling my way through. And there were some that were better than others, and some that I always did think were sort of problematic. But one of the people I always liked growing up was Dave Chappelle, actually, which is ironic as being a trans woman now, and the direction his comedy has gone. If you don't know what I mean, let me just pull that up. Oh, I don't want to pull that up. I want to pull this up. Yeah, okay. So here's the kind of jokes Dave Chappelle's making.
I'm not saying that to say that trans women aren't women. I am just saying that those pussies that they got, you know what I mean? I'm not saying it's not pussy, but that's like beyond pussy or impossible pussy.
Yeah, so, I mean, not great. The attempted inclusion, I guess, but this was from like a year ago. He's gotten much more complicated. Then he made his video that we all know about. I didn't want to share that clip tonight, but the one where he talks about Jim Carrey doing Andy Kaufman and compares that to saying that's what a trans woman is. It's a person pretending to be another person that they're actually not, and everybody knows they're not, but we all have to pretend along with them. It's his message on that, which is just it's punching down. I don't want to like harp on Dave Chappelle tonight. Dave Chappelle's not the topic of the show, just so you know, not the topic of my segment. He's just the base of the pyramid to where these messages come from. You can hear the same joke made from somebody claims to be an ally. This is comedian Ian Fidance.
I date trans women because I'm from the future, okay? Yeah, I like my women like I like my undershirts, tucked. And dating trans women, it's helped me evolve, it's helped me learn. I was with this gal and she was using different terms for things. And
there's a nice lead up where it comes across very, very much ally.
I never really heard of or thought of before. We're back at my apartment and we're making love, from behind, doggy love, and and she goes, yeah, fuck my pussy, and I was like, oh, that's fun. She calls her ass a pussy. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm fucking your pussy.
See, and then we get into mocking, like, I guess what you would call trans culture or language that is sort of gender affirming. The term, despite what Ian's gonna claim here, the term pussy is not synonymous with vulva or vagina. It's something that you fuck, right? It's that's why you can have one that's in a fleshlight, and it's still a pussy, right? So it's what you do with it and how you identify it. It's not a medical term. It's not something you're gonna look in the dictionary and say, oh, an ass is not a pussy. It can be if you're fucking it. Sorry to be gross in this section, but holy shit, this is a swing and a miss.
And then she was like, yeah, suck my girl dick. And I was like, that's a bit of an oxymoron, but...
And then, yeah, it continues on like this. A bit of an oxymoron for the term girl dick. Again, mocking the language used for trans women to describe their genitalia. Because it's funny, but he's an ally, guys. He's just making fun of the terms we use. He's an ally, though. He's with you. He's got your back.
Who am I? And then she said one that came really out of left field. She goes, yeah, lick my clit. And I was like, well, now I'm fucking confused, lady. And then I was like, oh my God, trans women are women, because I can't find the clit on them either.
Okay, so and then that last joke was a hit. He needs to get rid of all that middle section, though. He really does. The clit thing was good. But yeah, the whole rest of the setup and mocking the language and stuff, You're not. That's not how to ally. That's the same joke Dave Chappelle just told. If you were missing the point, when you all the mocking the terms and stuff that we use, girl dick, calling your ass a pussy, whatever, is the same joke that Dave Chappelle just made. So you cannot call yourself an ally if you're making the same jokes that Dave Chappelle makes. That last joke was a joke you made on yourself, which is why it hit. But the rest of this whole routine was just a fail. Now, so you get, we go from the bad, and this is, like this is really just not even trying to be inclusive. It's just sort of nudge, nudge, wink, wink. This is nudge, nudge, wink, wink to try to be inclusive, which is also not the best. This guy's pretty good though. I don't know if you guys know who this comedian is. You might be a redneck if you do. This is Jeff Foxworthy, and I was delighted to find out about his position on this. I'm going to read this little excerpt that he put. I don't know what a sea rancher is, and I think it's better that I don't, because his point sticks a lot better if you don't know what a sea rancher even is. So we're gonna roll ahead. I'm just gonna read this. He gives a little bit of a description of who he is in case you don't know. So I'm gonna read that. My name is Jeff Foxworthy, and I'm a. Hold on, I'll try to do this in my Missouri accent. Give me a second. Let me wet my whistle. I have an actual natural accent that can do that works with Jeff Foxworthy. So I just got to let it out a little bit. All right, my name is Jeff Foxworthy, and I'm a comedian, author, and television show host. I recently visited your community and asked my assistant to draft the following letter. Best, Jeff Foxworthy. Dear Sea Ranchers, I'm a comedian, author, television host, Jeff Foxworthy. I recently stayed at the Sea Ranch, California. My old buddy Larry, the cable guy, recommended that I stop there for a quick breather while I'm in the good old days tour. I enjoyed your links, of course, and better than average Wi-Fi. My stay was very relaxing. I'm writing to you today because I have a confession to make. I made a few jokes about the Sea Ranch and that I shouldn't have shared. If you know me from my comedy, you know that I don't like to offend. Some of you might remember my stand-up from the early 90s when I used to tell women do this and men do that jokes, and by the blue-collar comedy tour days. In 2000, I changed those to my wife does this and I do that. The change happened for several reasons. Most important was that I wanted to be very clear that my comedy is about my own unique experience of the world. That experience might be different than yours, and I don't want to put words into anyone else's mouth and demean them or make them feel like I'm subtly poking fun at their expense. I decided to make fun of my own observations where I looked like a dummy and my comedy was stronger for it. You've probably noticed that professional comedians can make themselves the object of a joke without sounding like a sourpuss. That's why nobody thinks Seinfeld as funny as he does. Oh, sorry, that was a good one. A rarefied few are masters that infuse personal experience and self-deprecation to sugarcoat a sensitive or even subversive message. Dave Chappelle was once an expert at this, and in his routine about white privilege in police interaction is a classic example. And I think we are all familiar with that routine, right? We're all familiar with with Sea Rancher is someone who breeds seahorses. I'm going to go with that just because it doesn't matter what a Sea Rancher is, and then we're going to find out why. And that's a point that he's making here. All right. A rarefied few are masters that infuse personal experience and self-deprecation to sugarcoat a sensitive or even subversive message. Dave Chappelle was an expert at this, and his routine about white privilege in police interactions is a classic example, obviously. In that routine, Chappelle's fictitious white friend Chip has a series of increasingly outrageous encounters with law enforcement. I'm going back into my normal voice. I lost my accent, like, naturally. In the first few encounters, Chip and Chappelle are lost in lower Manhattan and take breaks to smoke a joint, and Chappelle is horrified when Chip walks up to a nearby police officer. No, Chip, don't do it. Touches the officer to get his attention, admits to being a little high, and asks for directions. To Chappelle's naive amazement, the police officer simply provides directions and a stern "be careful" before they're on their way. Chappelle found the whole experience incredible. In a later story, Chip is pulled over for street racing while drunk and drives away with a warning after telling the police officer, "I'm sorry, I didn't know I couldn't do that." Genius. Chappelle's routine about Chip works because it's delivered as a first-person experience. He plays the dummy who was unaware of the white people experience with the criminal justice system. He doesn't need to put anyone down or make any poignant observations. Unfortunately, he recently lost his touch and rarely includes himself in his routines, and sounds like a grumpy grandpa that just doesn't get all these gay and trans people. Anywho, all this is to bring me back to my confession. I had a few too many glasses of Sonoma Valley Sauvignon Blanc. I think that's how you say it. It might be Blanche. At the Lodge Vino and Vinyl event during my stay at the Sea Ranch. Went back to my rental and jotted down a handful of "you might be a redneck if" jokes about the Sea Ranch. And it's not my story to tell, and I'm sorry I did this, but I will share them. And there's a bunch of terrible jokes about sea ranchers that don't make any sense probably to anybody who's not a sea rancher. Like, you might be a sea rancher if at least one of your neighbors has written a undergraduate textbook. You might be a sea rancher. Yeah, you might be. If you have more telescopes than televisions, you might be a sea rancher. They're not good jokes. I'm not going to read them all. But if if most of your phone's memory or iCloud space is taken up by videos of sheep, hawks, deer, foxes, turkey, whales, seals, woodpeckers, or vacation renters making a mess of things, you might be a sea rancher. Okay. So please understand that this is not meant to offend. It's also not meant to not offend, which is the problem and why I need to come clean. I'm going to make fun. I should be making fun of myself too. I call it the golden rule of comedy, and my buddies from the Blue Collar Comedy Tour 2000 to 2004 and I try hard to live by it every day. I will be sticking to my redneck jokes for the time being, or at least until I convince Larry the Cable Guy to co-invest in a few rental properties there and I get to know you a little better. The best, Jeff Foxworthy. P.S. Jeff asked me to get this published in the Sea Ranch book. Okay. Anyway, so if you haven't picked up on the poignant message of this open letter to the Sea Ranchers, Jeff Foxworthy is basically saying that, here's what happens when you write jokes about things that you have no business talking about, making jokes about, or engaging the public about because you're not informed or you don't understand the experience of that person and why that's bad by writing his bad jokes about sea ranchers. Definitely a class act, Jeff Foxworthy. But there's somebody who's going to one-up this guy too, which is, and everybody might know this guy. Do you guys know a stand-up comedian named Jon Stewart? Yeah, because Jon Stewart, that's the reason, he's the one reason I'm doing this show tonight, just this week. Jon Stewart coming out is so based, talking about these go woke, go broke, trans, anti-queer comedians. Literally, is pinpointing some stuff with Dylan Mulvaney and the Bud Light controversy. Let me read this out. Jon Stewart helped kick off the first day of a Netflix as a Joke festival with a snootful of righteous indignation, according to the Hollywood Reporter, firing darts at a number of targets, including comedians who strut around in their anti-woke pants. In particular, Jon Stewart is so fucking sick of these comics and their go woke, go broke mantra. What are you losing? You can't say anything anymore? What do you want to say? Stewart asked as an imaginary anti-woke comic during his set at a Greek theater in Los Angeles. Shut the fuck up. And by the way, the people who talk about anti-woke are the biggest fucking pussies you would ever find. This is officially the transposition where I dropped Ben Shapiro's favorite P word the most, by far. I've been very vulgar this stream, and I apologize if that's not something that you anticipated come out of my mouth tonight. But when you're talking about adult stand-up comedy, you gotta roll with the punches. You gotta use the vulgarities, if you will. Usually I'm pretty clinical, but I go on. Yeah, shut the fuck up, he says. In particular, Stewart lit up conservative comics who got hot and bothered over Bud Light, and if this hyperlink links to the thing where about Rob Schneider and going after Garth Brooks. And it's a controversial partnership with trans influencer Dylan Mulvaney. I'm not just tired of it, the woke shit, you lose nothing. I'm a comedian. I've lost 2 words in 35 years. He's talking about words that he used to use in his routine, but stopped using once he found out that there was a negative implication to them, right? I think that Jon Stewart used to use the hard R in his comedy, and I think he may have dropped a few of the British cigarette terms. But he might have thrown those around. I'm not sure. I don't want to point any fingers and say that's specifically the 2 words he's talking about, because it could be other ones. I've lost words from my vocabulary being more inclusive too, because when you find out something is just coined to be derogatory to somebody, you kind of lose interest in saying it. At least it does for me, a person with human empathy. Like the word spaz, okay? I used the word spaz all growing up. All my life, I used the word spaz. And then I got into a long-term relationship with a woman who had cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy is a term coined to mock someone. Spaz is a term coined to mock somebody. The term is actually part of the condition of having cerebral palsy. It's to mock someone as if they are acting like they have cerebral palsy. Right, it's to say that you're acting like you have CP. So don't use the word spaz anymore. Easy peasy. I'm surprised we got yanked down for as much pussy as I've dropped in this stream tonight. I'm serving cunt, I swear. Stewart said about the insensitive phrases he no longer uses in his comedy. Honestly, are you that fucking unimaginative that you can't figure it out? Stewart saved some of his most pointed barbs for non-conservatives, specifically those who say comedians shouldn't joke about President Joe Biden's age. We should joke about all the freaking geriatric people's ages that we are putting in the White House, because we should not put people who are 20 freaking years behind culturally. I'm sorry to my elder trans people. I get that our panel is made up of the senior movement of the trans branch, but we shouldn't be putting geriatric people in charge of our country. We just shouldn't, because they're culturally behind. You know, you reach a certain age and your brain stops progressing. I mean, yeah, they can have a cabinet full of young and progressive people, but yeah, I think is that. Oh yeah, I'm going to wrap up with, do you all know Dead Domain? Jordan, great channel. I talked about Jordan a bit when I was interviewing the matriarch, but Jordan is also a stand-up comedian. This is how you can make a good joke about being freaking trans or queer or whatever. Jordan is trans non-binary, without punching down, without deprecating.
Both of my partners to Thanksgiving this year for my Christian conservative family.
So, can I reset this? Yeah.
So I am queer and polyamorous. I actually brought both of my partners to Thanksgiving this year for my Christian conservative family. They were so ever seen a healthy relationship before? It's actually been funny because since I started transitioning, my mom has been very concerned that I'm gonna develop an interest in guys. Like, even at Thanksgiving, she's like, you don't like boys, do you? And I took the dick out of my mouth and I was like, Mom, it's not that big of a deal. So I am.
Yeah, so that's how you do some trans comedy. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm not trying to tone police anybody. I'm just saying that, you know, you can, if you're going to stand by it, you're going to take these positions and stand by it with your comedy. You're only going to have that like fringe right wing movement that Roseanne and Rob Schneider and Jim Brewer are currently riding right now. You know, it's not going to last forever. And Dave Chappelle too, for that matter, to kind of like revitalize their careers. People like to point out, like, oh, you say that they're all washed up, but Dave Chappelle was still selling out clubs or whatever. Yeah, but is the general consensus, you know, not general consensus, is the general movement of these people, or is it mostly those who were not, you know, making it big? Jim Brewer I hadn't seen since Half Baked in the 90s. Rob Schneider, other than cameos in Adam Sandler movies, the early 2000s with the Deuce Bigalow series, maybe. Roseanne had a show in the 90s and then kind of disappeared into obscurity every now and then to appear in the tabloids for some kind of nonsense where she would be suing someone or acting a fool about something. These people aren't like, you know, living in the high rise and then saying, you know what, I'm gonna start making jokes about trans people. They're trying to revitalize a career that's been, to revitalize, to rekindle, because the flame's completely gone out on their sense of comedy. But I digress. That's just my opinion on things. This has been Bree from the Transpositions Weekly, and thank you so much for tuning in. All right, and we're going to move right into Ember's segment here. So give me just a second to get that pulled up, and we will be underway. Let's see. Yep, there we go.
In the last few years, dozens of U.S. states have passed hundreds of anti-trans bills. It's a big problem that's become nearly as common here as corrupt politicians. But sometimes it's important to take a step back and remember, this isn't normal. For example, this past weekend showed what happens in a respectable country when the bigot brigade proposed so much as one anti-trans bill. From Pink News. On Sunday, thousands of demonstrators protested in French cities after right-wing senators tabled legislation on gender transition, calling it an offensive on trans rights and therefore on human rights. More than 800 groups, activists, members of parliament, blue-collar folk, and young people alike took to the streets in at least 30 cities, chanting. In the last few years, dozens of U.S. states have passed hundreds of anti-trans bills. It's a big problem that's become nearly as common here as corrupt politicians. But sometimes it's important to take a step back and remember, this isn't normal. For example, this past weekend showed what happens in a respectable country when the bigot brigade proposed so much as one anti-trans bill. From Pink News. On Sunday, thousands of demonstrators protested in French cities after right-wing senators tabled legislation on gender transition, calling it an offensive on trans rights and therefore on human rights. More than 800 groups, activists, members of parliament, blue-collar folk, and young people alike took to the streets in at least 30 cities, chanting anti-patriarchy, anti-capitalism, solidarity with trans people all over the world, which probably sounds better in French, and brandishing placards calling for health resources for transitions. There were, of course, counter-protesters as well. A French journalist reported seeing two people throwing small stones at protesters in Montpellier. There they were, France's two transphobes. One speaker at the demonstration said, quote, "Today there is an urgent need to defend the rights of all people at a time when right-wing and far-right politicians are attacking the rights of trans people and disseminating false information about trans-identifying children. We know what happens when the powerful start stripping a minority of their humanity. It happens so fast. We cannot allow hate any foothold." The US and UK used to understand that too. We can see it in our own histories, where trans people have existed openly for hundreds of years, often acknowledged or accepted by the government of the nation they lived in. That, too, is good news of the week, in its way. In fact, this is the very first ever Trans Plus History Week. Founder Marty Davies said in interviews that while Trans Day of Visibility is critically important and Trans Day of Remembrance helps the community carry on after tragedy, one thing that's missing is trans history. So many people don't realize trans people have always been here. Just look at these 2 Women of the Year awards, 2 trans women 50 years apart.
Jean Jorgensen, the ex-GI who was changed into a woman by Danish surgeons, is voted the Woman of the Year by the Scandinavian Societies of Greater New York and receives a certificate citing her contributions to science with feminine modesty.
Dylan Mulvaney accepts the Woman of the Year award.
No matter how many surgeries he gets, no matter how much lipstick he puts on, no matter how many sparkly dresses he puts on, he'll never be accepted as a woman.
So, let's meet a few trans people of the past and see if we might learn something. First, there's Frances Thompson, a trans black woman who testified before the U.S. Congress in 1866 following a violent riot in Memphis. She lived as a woman as a slave, and she lived as a woman after the war. The Civil War. Yes, that long ago. While the federal government recognized her status as a woman, in fact, didn't even consider the matter worthy of government attention, because it isn't anyone's business, the people she was there to testify against did have a problem. It took them 10 years, but in 1876 they finally got revenge by having her arrested for, quote, being a man in a dress. She was fined $50, equivalent to nearly $16,000 today, and sent to prison to work on a chain gang. She died shortly after her release from dysentery that she contracted while in prison. There are a lot of takeaways from that story. Racism, problems with the prison system that still aren't much changed today, ridiculous fines, and more. But most pertinent of all right now, she lived as a trans person just fine. Her neighbors accepted her. Her government accepted her. It was transphobia that killed her. Then there's Mark Weston. Born in 1905 and assigned female at birth, Mark became a national track and field champion at 20 years old, winning again in 1928 and taking multiple championship titles in 1929. In 1936, Mark retired from competitions, changed his name to Mark, and underwent a series of surgeries to correct his anatomical situation. He later married, and the couple went on to have 3 children. And here's Colonel Emilio Robles Avila, born in 1889 and raised in the Catholic Church. He joined the Mexican Revolution in his 20s. He finished that war and helped put down a rebellion before coming out openly and insisting on being referred to as a male by the name of Colonel Robles. It is said he was completely open about his gender identity, but was very firm about people respecting it. His military record had him registered as a male, but it was an open secret that he presented in accord with his birth gender during the Revolution. Like Mark, he later married, yes, as a Catholic, and the couple went on to raise a daughter. This is Lucy Hicks Anderson, who transitioned at age 15 in 1901. Here, she's pictured with a sheriff and a local rum runner, both outside her speakeasy during the Prohibition era. Then there are these 2 trans brothers, Mark and David Farrow, from an article in 1939 calling them brave. In the Daily Mail? How the standards of journalism have fallen, for shame! And isn't it funny that the same outlet that published on trans kids 85 years ago is today saying transgender is a new thing and trans kids don't exist? This is your archive, Daily Mail. We can see it. And speaking of archives, here's a show from over 50 years ago in the UK, also known as Turf Island.
Of the four of us in the studio this evening, two are transsexuals awaiting sexual conversion surgery, and the other two, including myself, are what are known as sex changers, woman born of man. Now, Jan and Rachel here have not yet had the sexual conversion surgery, which is referred to all the time by transsexuals as the operation. So if we talk about the operation, you'll know we're talking about that and nothing else. Jan, could you give the viewers some brief idea of the way you find life at the moment as a pre-op transsexual?
Yes, I find life at the moment, waiting for this op, is like living on the edge of a volcano.
Yes.
Because if anything happened to me, if I got knocked down by a bus or car or anything, or taken ill, and I was put into hospital, and they found out I was still biologically male,
yes,
I would be put into a men's ward,
yes,
which would be too embarrassing for words.
Yes.
Or if I wasn't put in a men's ward, I'd be put in a sort of side ward, and you're made to feel an oddity, whereas I feel I'm not an oddity.
People often ask me,
Yes, I do
are you
think-
happier? I don't think that's relevant.
No, because
I don't
happiness-
think
no.
exactly.
Happiness
One
is a
not
byproduct
necessarily
of
any,
anything,
yes,
anyway.
it's a byproduct. And
But I do think you've definitely
what matters is, are you your true self as much as you can be as a human being?
That is,
Are you
yes.
really together?
Oh, yeah.
And if you're an ant, there's no good beefing about the fact you're not an elephant. You have to accept the fact you're an ant, right?
Yeah.
And we have this...
I've just
this-
accepted completely that I'm me. I mean, this is me.
yes.
Yes, trans people on TV, and it wasn't even a scandal. How curious that the transphobes of today can't even remember things from their own lifetimes. And just for fun, here's an ad for HRT from 1926, 98 years ago. It's worth noting that, like most trans medicine, it was originally created for cis people. I selected these stories to show that trans people were known to exist publicly over 150 years ago, and that even well into the 20th century, almost every person, the governments, and even the Catholic Church just treated us like the people we are. It isn't being trans that's a new phenomenon. It's making a political issue out of us existing that the world hasn't seen before. Any country that really does value human rights wouldn't stand for this. And yet, here we are. So I really have to wonder, if transphobes aren't after us because we're a new thing nobody understands, or because the church says so, or because the laws can't figure out how to account for us existing in society, then what exactly is the purpose they're serving? It isn't protecting people. They're harming people. It isn't protecting freedom. They're dismantling freedom just to get to us. It isn't holy writ or royal command or even some vague principle about the feminine they never actually lift a finger to advocate for. So what's the point? Or, more precisely, what's in it for them? Trans Plus History Week runs May 6th through 12th, and many of the historical trans people whose biographies are deeply abridged here are also depicted in Eli Ehrlich's forthcoming book on the subject. For the Transpositions, I've been Ember Belrad.
We realize that a change in the law will take time. But a change in public attitudes, and perhaps a change in your attitude too, can begin tonight. And after all, it is that which is really paramount. I still feel we do need all of us to accept ourselves for what we are, members of an intersex species in a sense at least, still moving along the evolutionary path. And to do this, and to accept the changes we have suggested, would then in that case be not merely a win for us, but a win for you, for humanity, both for who it is and for what it is. Good night.
This is Transposition Sports. I'm Carly Chardonnay Webb. Another legal fight involving West Virginia after a smaller skirmish ends somewhat strangely. Now, we've reported on the federal appeal against West Virginia's ADF Built Save Women's Sports Act and the story of 13-year-old Becky Pepper Jackson. The parents of 4 of the 5 student athletes who protested against Jackson appearing in a county championship meet back on April 18th filed a lawsuit against the Harrison County School District in the Harrison County Circuit Court in West Virginia. This action stemmed from the 4 students being benched from a conference championship meet that same week. Now, last Thursday, a ruling from the Harrison County Circuit Court lifted what was reported to be a suspension by school officials for the rest of the track season. Supposedly. You see, last Monday, all the students who took part in the protest against Pepper Jackson participated in a 4-team invite when they were supposedly suspended. Now, the Alliance Defending Freedom and a Christian Dominionist education group known as Christian Educators are bringing in another West Virginia teen in their lawsuit, State of Tennessee versus Cardona. Adelia Cross is a freshman in high school. Last year as a middle schooler, she went to Bridgeport Middle School and was a classmate and teammate with Becky Pepper Jackson. Now, according to this motion filing, there were 600 instances in the last 3 years when Becky Pepper Jackson took away opportunities from cisgender girls. Now, you know and I know this is nonsense, but there's even bigger nonsense in this filing because of an accusation. There's a contention that Adelia Cross, the high school freshman in question, was a target of sexual harassment from Becky Pepper Jackson. And the filing went into some detail about it, about certain comments that Pepper Jackson was alleged to have made. Cross even went farther in penning an op-ed for FoxNews.com just 2 days ago. What we are seeing here is a continuation of a tactic that the Alliance Defending Freedom is well known for. The ADF is not just a law firm. They are considered an anti-LGBTQ hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center, an organization that knows what a hate group looks like. What the ADF are also are character assassins, and they've done this sort of tactic in regards to trans people in every lawsuit they filed on this issue. If you don't believe me, just ask Andrea Yearwood and Terry Miller on some of the things that they filed and continue to file in their continuing suits against the state of Connecticut. Now, just a reminder for those who may not know or didn't hear earlier, Becky Pepper Jackson is in middle school. She's 13 years old. And those who don't want to see her compete or even be in school have called her everything from a boy, a male, a hulking man. In fact, the candidate for governor of West Virginia, who also is the attorney general, Patrick Morrissey, has done a lot of this. Don't believe me? Roll the tape.
Transphobia for a stronger America.
Well, this came up in Bridgeport recently, that someone is doing a shot put. I praised the little girls who walked off and didn't compete because they have to face a male. You don't want little girls to be facing hulking males in the locker rooms.
Imagine this. They're trying to sell a 13-year-old middle school girl as a male predator. That's how low the ADF will go. Some good news on the legal front. The National Women's Law Center stepped up by filing a motion to intervene in the Riley's Gaines 16 versus NCAA lawsuit on Tuesday. In a statement, the National Women's Law Center said, quote, "Our arguments in the lawsuit are in opposition to anti-trans extremists who are trying to force a blanket ban that will exclude all trans women from college sports governed by the NCAA, regardless of where they're from, what sport they play, and how much their college teammates may want to welcome these athletes on the team. These extremists also seek to ban trans women from using restrooms and locker rooms that align with their gender identity. NWLC asked that the district court dismiss their case against the NCAA." Now, the big body in Indianapolis is pretty much radio silent on this lawsuit, mainly because of a policy change that's coming August 1st, the start of the next fall sports season, where eligibility for transgender women will be decided by the national or world governing bodies in the individual sports. Right now, there's an athlete in the NCAA who's dealing with these ramifications in real time while she's running some fast times. Her name, Sadie Schreiner. She's a sophomore at Rochester Institute of Technology, New York. And I'm telling you, this kid's quick. She's fast. Don't believe me? Let's go to the videotape. Liberty League Championships over the weekend. She's in the 400 meters and she showed some strength. Grabbed the race by the throat at the 300-meter mark and then powered to win in 55.07 seconds. That is the number 2 time in Division III this season. And then she took to the track for the 200 meters. She rolls to the conference championship in the 200 meters at 24.14 seconds. Another top time among Division III sprinters, and she's in the national conversation. And don't forget a chance, check her website out. She's a photography major and a graphic designer. And her stuff's pretty rad. Earlier this year, she qualified for the Division III Indoor Nationals at 200 meters. And she was fast, but not quite fast enough. She missed making the final by 6/1000ths of a second. Needless to say, in the outdoor season, she's leaving nothing to chance. Now, Schreiner has a chance at some history if she gets to the D3 finals in her events. If she just gets to the finals in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina in 3 weeks' time, she can earn first-team All-American status. Since the NCAA instituted their policy in 2011, there have been 3 trans student athletes who've been All-Americans. Franklin Pierce's Cece Telfer in Division II track and field in 2019, University of Pennsylvania's Leah Thomas in Division I swimming, and Isaac Hennig in Division I swimming at Yale University, both of those in 2022. Now, based on her performances this season, she's definitely in the national conversation in Division III. If she wins a national championship, she would join Telfer and Thomas as transgender student athletes who've won an individual NCAA title. But Sadie Schreiner is not just racing against the best of Division III, including the defending champion in both her events, Kennedy Waite from Mount Union. Schreiner is also racing against time. Because of the World Athletics ban on transgender women in women's competition and the NCAA's policy change, this could be the last year Schreiner will be able to compete. One of the stipulations of the anti-trans lawsuit against the NCAA would be the removal of all results, placings, and awards made by transgender women in NCAA sports. Now, the common denominator of all of this is that you have a high-powered interest group who's very interested in the care and feeding of certain politicians determined to sell anti-trans discrimination by any means, at any cost. And I would like to remind certain people of some facts. Number one, Sadie Schreiner is fully eligible by the rules of the NCAA. She's met all the criteria to compete, including having to provide more medical data on herself prior to championship competition. And number two, if Sadie Schreiner was in the back of the pack, you wouldn't care about her or any of this. The real issue here is that Sadie Schreiner and athletes like her, if they're successful once or 10 times, for certain cisgender people, they make you feel uncomfortable. A few months ago, I had a chance to sit down with Lex Horowitz and talk about this. Now, Lex is a former college athlete. They played squash at Division III Baldwin College. And while they were playing squash, they also found their truth and they acted on it. They were on the women's team when they started their college career. They ended their college career and started their transition by moving over to the men's team. These days, they're a consultant on sports equity and inclusion issues. And this issue of comfort, they broke it down like this.
Trans people are not dominating in sports. We exist as athletes and we're doing the best we can. We love to compete. But even looking at the fact that cis people are beat by cis people all the time and have no problem with that. You'll be upset because of course you want to win. But if you are a cis person and you've been consistently beat by another cis person and now you have an issue with the fact that a trans person is beating you, let's acknowledge the fact that this is not a new experience, but you're going to root onto someone's identity as an excuse for the fact that you just may not be as good as that person. And that is the truth. And you weren't as good as that cis person either. So let's look at why you are attacking trans people in sport and not simply accepting the fact that that person is better than you in this moment. Maybe you continue to train and to grow, and then maybe next time you win and then you don't have a problem. So why don't you have a problem now?
I know a swimmer in Kentucky who needs to hear that.
That was what my my little spiel was just on.
And that's a subject that those who use cruelty to make policy really don't want to talk about, do they? For Transposition Sports, I'm Carly Chardonnay Webb.
Hey, thanks, Carly. Great coverage as usual. You can tell you've got some pro chops, both in the newsroom and on the field. I'm sorry, Carly played a football game up here in Portland, 10 miles away. I was busily measuring J24s in preparation for my own season, which is coming up. Measured 3 boats last Saturday. You can catch the video of it and follow language sailor talk. I was measuring my fellow competitors' boats. I'm a class measurer in the J24 class, so I was teaching our now head of the technical committee how to measure J24. It was pretty much fun. But this is the thing. I want to just touch on one issue. This notion that that athletes, women athletes in particular, are can't stand the idea of trans women competing in sport. I've never seen that. Watch the video with that I produced for or was a participant in for Transposition Sports, TheTransPositions, with Sarah Weiss. Our competitors like having us on the court or on the race course. I've been asked to join several women's teams. I've been asked to serve on women's panels within my own sport at the national governing body level. There are some loud people who do not like us. There's no question about it. But in sports, look at the scoreboard. Look at how many trans women even have an opportunity to compete. And now these folks just want to make it that much harder. Not just under the rules, where we have been eligible to compete for over 2 decades with very stringent conditions and very stringent monitoring of who we are we what we say we are, like justify yourself. And yet these people want to proceed on a program of elimination from this area of society. And if they can succeed in this area of society, it'll just be one element in their program to eliminate transgenderism entirely. from society. And that's a quote. And that's what is written down in Project 2025. This is where we're at. You know, this is, for a lot of people, sports don't matter, but they do for a lot more people than you think. Anyway, Carly, got some, you want to jump in, have some follow up at all? Like, wait a minute, there's
Hey.
boxing. What's going on?
Oh no!
So
Well, you
good to
see,
see ya.
we built,
I am so
we
sorry
built
I
a,
missed your
no, we actually
game.
we built an open for. I mean, from now on, when I do transposition sports reports, I decided to go ahead and build an open. And we built. And by the way, I want to throw a little something out to the. I want to throw a little something out to the audience. I want to have a little fun with all the people, especially the people in YouTube land who are watching us tonight, because I wanted to do. I mean, I'm always trying to improve this thing, do a little bit more than we've done in the past, do a little bit more than we've done before. No, really take this thing to the next level. And one thing is what Stephanie's telling you. These are the facts. Because there seems to be a lot of people who say, well, maybe if we give up and on the sports issue, if we bend on the sports issue, if you really think if you bend on the sports issue, they won't mess with you somewhere else. They won't mess with you somewhere else. Come on, really? I mean,
We're
that's what
getting
they're going to
advice.
do.
Yeah, and this is the kind of advice we're getting from certain quarters. I can think of one particular person that crosses my mind right at the moment, Brianna Wu, who positions herself as she's a trans woman. Her introduction to politics was working for Trent Lott. This gives you an idea of where she
Well, she grew up in Mississippi.
was
So
raised.
she grew up in
She was,
Mississippi.
raised up in Mississippi.
Yeah. And well, here's the thing about,
and she moved to Massachusetts, ran for Congress. She's positioned herself as a woman of the left, but she advises us, "Oh, you're pushing too hard, Peter. This will be a turnoff for people.
no,
This is not.
well, you have to
This
understand,
isn't the thing." And
Brianna
it's like,
Wood's a
honey,
centrist.
you cannot. I have said time after time after time, when you make progress, you cannot take your foot off the accelerator pedal.
No, you
You
can't.
might want to ease off on it when you're going into a turn, but you can't give up because the race is 500 laps
Mm-hmm.
and longer. You can't.
Well, the thing is,
It's the old
Brianna
eyes
Wu
on the
is a centrist
prize
for the most
maxim
part.
too. You know.
I mean, but there's a lot of people who are who say they are liberal, but they're centrist. And to me, centrist is just I call it polite right in a lot of ways, because that's what centrism has really become in recent years. And for me, the people who say give up on the sports issue are forgetting one little thing. You see, they're using the sports issue to get at everything else, because it is a cheap mission kill in many ways. And if you're willing to give up, whenever I hear people say, well, maybe if we surrender on this issue, okay, what's the next issue that you're gonna gamble? What's the next issue you'll surrender on? What's the next one? Because there's always going to be a next surrender. Always. I mean, in Ohio, they use sports to sell
fundamental.
what was it? They use sports to sell an affirming healthcare ban on youth in Ohio.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, because it's a great way to smuggle in the notion that trans women are not women.
And
It's a great way of doing that, because they've convinced many people to take acceptance to that to a particular level. But when you do this, you're not a woman. When you do this, you're not a woman. And and the nuances of the nuances of the sports debate go into questions of biology, go into questions of the capacity of the human frame, the biological
Personally,
nature
I find
of things. And what it's like a study concluded in December 2023 that I think you covered last week goes into the whole notion
well,
that
the
the
story.
challenges all of that. Trans women are actually
Well,
kind
you
of
had the recent study
disadvantaged.
that come out as a part. I mean, Blair
Yeah,
Hamilton, who was profiled last
Blair
week,
Hamilton
the
study.
5 Good Minutes we did last week. And thank you again, Blair. Um, Blair was a point researcher on that, and that was an IOC back study.
Yeah,
And the thing is to me, not only just speaking as someone who is trans, but also speaking as somebody who's trans and in sports and is played and is seen and has lived a lot of what we're talking about. What people have to, I mean, the biggest problem one of the biggest problems we have is that people have these misconceptions about sports and about athletes that aren't so to begin with. Take gender out of the equation. And now you're taking all that bad information and you're extrapolating it to trans people. Number one, no two bodies are the same. I mean, literally, no two
right.
bodies, no two human beings are identical at all. We all walk into, if you're in just in a sporting parlance, we all come into a sport with different sets of skills, different sets of abilities. You just can't say on a look that this group of people are going to be better than this group of people and this group of people and so on. And as far as this whole issue of advantage, um, I can say this from experience. I'm at a number of disadvantages. I mean, I'm at a number of disadvantages. Let me put it this way. Like, for example, I play on a women's tackle football team. And by the way, for anyone who wants to say, fully eligible by the rules and regulations of the Women's Football Alliance. I mean, the medical director of the Women's Football Alliance knows exactly what my endo knows and my doctor knows
Mm-hmm.
about what's going on hormonally with me.
I wonder how many members of the general public are aware of the fact that in order to comply with the rules,
in order to play,
this is what we do.
In order to play, I had to basically I have to prove that I have been at a certain, in fact, there's the article right there. I had to prove that I was at a certain serum testosterone level and I had stayed there for 1 year.
Correct.
And me being Carly and doing extra, I showed my data for the last 5. And
well,
I was able to show
I've tracked it for the last 20
exactly. The point
last
is
26,
the point is that you all, and
world
by the
sailing.
way,
Here you go. Here's my report.
by the way, I want to play this real quick. Now, here's the challenge to all the people watching. I mean, I built this open because I wanted to highlight trans athletes. You got to name every athlete you got to name all the athletes in this clip. You got to name them all. If you're ready, roll the tape. Oh. Well, there you go. So as Stephanie and I are talking, I got to see some guesses from the peoples. I got to see some guesses from the peeps. So Peanut Gallery, this is a little interactive. The clip I just ran, you got to name all the athletes in it. Give you a hint, they're all trans. They're all relatively prominent. I figure you at least get 2. The first 2 are easy, but back to what Stephanie and I were talking about, and Bumblebee, good to have you back. But what people have to realize in the sports issue is there's so much nuance. But number one, there's regulation. There is massive regulation. And I mean, in the case of a Sadie Schreiner, for example, brilliant sophomore year track athlete at Rochester Institute of Technology, who could be the first transgender student athlete to win an individual national championship in her sport in 5 years. Remember, this month is the 5th anniversary of CC Telfer breaking through that. I mean, making that breakthrough that night in Kingsville, Texas. And
I literally popped in just to say I know one of those people at least at the very end because I'm friends with her on Twitter. That's Elena. Yeah, she's pretty based. Follow her if you're not following her on Twitter. She's one of the few big trans accounts that's still out there fighting that hasn't cut Twitter loose. So yeah. All right, I'm gonna.
So you got one. So you're able to get one. You're able to get the last one.
Anybody got anything else?
So anyone's got guesses. I mean, I figured the people would jump on the first two because the first two are the first two and the last one are easy. First two, last one are pretty dang easy. I mean, those are like those are like the giants of the ages they were. But but that's what people, going back to what I was talking about, that's what people don't, that's the first thing that a lot of, I'm going to say it, cisgender sports fans don't understand. There are people that believe there's no regulations. There are people that literally, someone actually told me, oh, you woke up one morning and said, I'm a girl and I want to play women's tackle football. Okay. Number one, no one transitions to play a sport. No one.
My favorite line is nobody transitions to win a pickle dish.
Yeah, no one wins that. Number two, understand when you say things like that, understand what you're saying about cisgender women. You are lifting my leg, you're lifting your leg on my teammates with the Connecticut ambush when you say that. You are insulting them. Because I played with a group of badasses who are incredible. And last week in Maine, we played a tough physical football team, and it was a hard-hitting football game. I'm still rubbing things from it. And that game was Saturday, and it's Thursday night. That's how hard the Maine Mayhem hit. That's how hard they hit. And it was great, live, fun, physical football. It was fun playing against them. Are you going to tell that team that, I assume, unless I know otherwise, they're all cisgender women, that they are not good athletes? No. Do stop to, and that's one thing that people do with this issue, and it angers me as a sports fan. See, I'm not so much angered about the insults that are thrown at me and mine, because I expect that. You see it coming. But when I see these people say that we want to protect women's sports, yet they talk about how great Olympic champion gets beat by 15,000 high school boys. When they feel the need to denigrate women's sports, you can't protect what you don't respect.
Here's the truth.
I'm going to say it one more time for the people in the back. You can't protect what you don't respect. And they don't respect women's sports. And right now, and these are the same people who claim to support women's sports, but when the U.S. women's national soccer team was fighting for equal pay, they were denigrating them. These are these male shock jocks like at Outkick and Breitbart especially, who say all of a sudden we want to protect women's sports. And then on one day they want to protect women's sports, but the other 6 days of the week, they're denigrating the WNBA.
Well, Carly, it's always women and children first. That's the way it goes. It's
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Or
you go. Why are those two issues at the forefront of the legislative agenda? Because they grab people by the feels.
Yes.
Because they go after the notion. First of all, there's a tremendous amount of misogyny and transmisogyny involved here, because especially in this, there's the assumption that any given man can beat any given woman. In other words, the guys who think they can take a point off of Serena Williams, that kind of thing, and Serena Williams, that kind of thing. It's just no, you can't. No, you can't even be on the same freaking tennis court. It's you're just not
If you can,
you're not
let's put it
operating
this
in
way, if you
those.
can take
You're
a
not
point like
operating at
women
that
and
level.
keep the ball, it don't happen often. It don't happen.
Right. It's just eh, there. Is virtue signaling? Would that be appropriate? I mean, it's
Virtue
just you're throwing out a challenge that you can't meet.
No.
And you don't understand the mechanisms, and you won't read the studies. I mean, I've mentioned this study a million times I did it today on the Transatlantic Calling Show where somebody called. Why is it that these people never call in when I'm on the show? I don't understand.
No, they
But
don't because
but I threw this study out that was done 2 years ago, uh, uh, by the World Anti-Doping Association's Canadian affiliate, the Canadian Center for Ethics in Sports. They did a survey of all of the literature from 2011 to 2021 inclusive. All of the literature written specifically on transgender women in athletic competition, in elite athletic competition. And their conclusion was there is no basis in any study whatsoever that could justify the cross the board banning of trans women from
exactly.
competition.
And I'm
This
looking
is
at
the World Anti-Doping Association affiliate. This is the body that if you were Canadian and you wanted a therapeutic use exemption for taking a cold allergy medication, they would have to approve it. Anybody who's been in sports at the elite level knows what a TUE is. Knows that has to be documented. And all of these things have to be documented. It's as if people think that regulation doesn't exist. It does.
Oh,
It
it
has.
definitely exists.
And it always will, because you know what? Sports are games. Games have rules. You got to follow the rules, the way it works.
Exactly. But I'm looking at one of the comments here, and Hunter Biden's laptop is saying something real important right now. If you ever watch women football, you quickly realize, oh, hey, this is some good football, and I like football. It's funny how the people who act to protect women's sports don't ever watch. And also, Hunter also stated the women's Final Four just outperformed the men's. How many of these women's sports advocates even cared? That's the point right there.
Yeah.
That's the one thing you have to understand about the turfs, the Posey Parkers, and even the people who claim that they are protecting women's sports, like Nancy Hogshead Makar and Martina Transphobe Margaret Cordova. That's her official name now. It's Martina Margaret Cordova. These people don't watch games. They don't watch women's sports. They don't buy tickets. They don't buy the merch. They don't know what's going on. They're not coaching a girls' team somewhere. I mean, I know there's one person. Sadie Schreiner is on Instagram. And on her Instagram, and I talked about how she's a graphic designer. She made this beautiful poster where it shows her like in a silhouette of words and different things that are said about her. You know, people call her a cheat and they say she's stealing trophies, blah, blah, blah. One of the people who commented on her page and tried to attack her was Inga Thompson. Now, Inga Thompson was a professional cyclist. And in her heyday in the 1980s, one of the best Olympic medalist, stage winner in the women's Grand Tours in the 1980s. She was a serious professional cyclist. She has been beating the drum of transphobia for years. But here's the funny thing. She supposedly started an effort to get more women in pro cycling. And she started a team at one point. The number of women through her program that got into that ended up breaking into the professional ranks, 0. In fact, last few years she talked about having a team, but actually didn't field one. So I find it interesting when there's these people who who don't get involved in the real issues. And she's in a
20
sport that could use a lot of help as far
Right.
as women's cycling. Women's cycling could use some help.
Well, and there's the classic example. Like it was 2023, right? British cycling went
Basically, they
through the
couldn't have a
whole
women's
thing.
tour.
They banned women from cycling in the UK, and then in the name of protecting women's cycling, and then they canceled the women's tour.
Because they didn't have any
The
money.
entire women's tour.
Because they
And
didn't have any money.
it wasn't trans women who ruined the
Mhm.
sport of cycling in the UK for women.
We
It
don't have
was
a
the
women's
fucking association that was supposedly promoting the sport.
Exactly.
And they
We don't
figured
have
they were
women's
going to save
cycling.
it by affecting 4 or 5 women who might be
Well, really,
trans who wanted to compete.
in Britain,
I
it was
mean,
really
let's be
one.
serious here.
Oh, yeah,
You're
but
not
it
behind
was only
women's sport.
one
You don't
in the
fund it.
case
You
of
don't
Britain.
care about it. You just want to make hay on for powerful political interests who want to use it as a divisive issue to gain and maintain power. That's it.
Exactly. But in the case of Britain especially, they were going after here's how wild this is why I can't stand any of the bans. World Aquatics put out a ban. Now, why did when World Aquatics put out a ban over a college kid in America whose chances of making the US Olympic team were actually pretty remote? Leah Thomas is a solid competitive college swimmer. But making the Olympic team, especially in the events that she would be swimming in an Olympic trial, her events, it's Katie Ledecky and everyone else. I mean, I really think people don't I think anybody who thought that all of a sudden she'll be dominant and dominate women's swimming, they don't realize how deep and competitive women's swimming is. I mean, we got the same day that Leah Thomas won her national championship, 2 high school kids were beating her by 3 seconds. 2 high school kids. I mean, y'all
And the
don't
following
understand where
year,
there's a difference
one of her former
between
teammates
NCAA champion
beat
and Olympic
her
champion.
record.
What?
And the following year, one of her former teammates at Penn beat her record
broke her record with
set an Ivy record.
Mhm. But that is the thing. You'd be surprised. World Athletics made a rule because they were afraid of the possibility that some trans won't be good enough. And at the time, there's only one trans woman that tried to take a shot at a world championship at the time that they were looking at these rules, and that was CC Telfer. And CC Telfer's personal record at the 400-meter hurdles is 8 seconds slower than the best in the world, who also happens to hold the world record. A kid named Sydney McLaughlin-Lavrone. Probably heard of her, world record holder at 400-meter hurdles, and right now is contemplating going for double gold in the 400 hurdles and the open 400. And I personally believe in the open 400. She could take down that world record. She could take it, I think 47.60. She can take it. But the whole thing is, oh, by the way, Sydney McLaughlin-Lavrone is a supporter of CC Telfer, and has said so publicly.
Again, here's another situation where our competitors want us there. There's a small number of people who are very, very vocal. Most athletes are passionate about their sport just to begin with. And part of that passion is encouraging more participation
Yeah.
at the amateur level all the way through the ranks to the semi-professional and professional levels.
They put this way,
That
the
people
athlete,
want to see people take joy, people like you, people like me, take joy in seeing young people get into the sport and grow. And that goes for cis athletes, trans athletes, just all of us. We're passionate about what we do.
Exactly. I mean,
because it's
me
it's it's a source of tremendous joy, personal joy.
for
So
exactly. I got into sports journalism because I was a young athlete. I was a young athlete, and I just went and I realized that my body did not grow as fast as my ambitions did, but I wanted to stay in it. And plus, I love sports. I love seeing the best of the best going out there and doing it. I love seeing good competition. I love seeing it. And I love being in I love playing sports just because I like testing myself against that other person or that other team or testing myself against my own limits. That's why I do it. And I've had the opportunity to have a lot of fun, play some great sports. And this football thing, I'm loving it. I'm loving it because it's physical and it's raw and it's awesome. And the camaraderie among teammates, among opponents, the camaraderie is beautiful. You can't measure it. It's so much fun and you can't measure it. And I can say this definitively, haven't had an issue. This is my second season playing. I have not had a single, the only issue I've had is with people sitting in the peanut gallery. The people on the field, they've been cool and they know my tea and their attitude is I don't care. I'm gonna knock you. I want to knock you into the turf, same as anyone else, and that's all I want. Just treat me like anyone else. That's it. That's it. And and my whole thing is these people don't. Again, it goes back to these people who are complaining. They don't really care about sports. Does Riley Gaines is Riley Gaines working? If Riley Gaines really cares about women swimming, you know what? Go back to Louisville and start a swim team.
yeah, go back and coach.
Instead of trying to get a bunch of men elected that are going to try and all of a sudden the United States, we invade countries. Next, they're going to invade your ovaries if you're not careful. Instead of doing that, why don't you go back to Louisville and start a swim team? Get kids turned on to swimming. Teach water safety. Do something to advance your sport. Because right now your legacy is really just about I got a grift because I whined about a trophy. And I look at people like Nancy Hogshead Makar. I'm frustrated with her because she should be a hero, and she's been a hero, fighting for Title IX, fighting for equity for women, speaking out on sexual harassment, speaking out on sexual abuse and violence against women. And she had firsthand experience with that because she was raped her freshman year at Duke.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she went through a cauldron of hell, and has fought to make sure no other young college woman, no other woman goes through what she went through, and at the same time that there's equity in sports, and I applaud her for it greatly, but she is squandering that legacy, that championship legacy, for 20 pieces of patriarchy, and it's sad. Same thing with Martina Navratilova, and in the case of Martina, she needs therapy because Martina's doing to transgender women what the Sun and the Daily Express were doing to her 40 years ago. Hurt people hurt people.
Correct.
If you still sore about the way they treated you when you came out, go to a therapist, figure that out, but don't put that on us. Don't be if anything, you shouldn't be doing the oppressor's business. You should be standing out front for equity. All those people picking on Megan Rapinoe, you leave Megan alone. Megan is actually doing for sport. She's actually getting out there and advancing for sport. She's advancing her sport. Her and her fiance Sue Bird, they're advancing their sports. They're going to open up more opportunities for more young girls to keep playing. Unlike the turfs, who could care less. If the turfs could care less. Shoot, a lot of you turfs, I know y'all down with Project 2025. I know it, because see it. you better be careful. The leopard is looking at your face and is seeing an entree. Hashtag just saying.
There's a lot of that.
But that's the thing. You can deal. You told it, but it's the difference between a champ and a chump. And I'll say it. Riley Gaines is a chump. All this over a trophy. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And now you're picking on a 13-year-old girl. And I think, and I can tell you right now, to the people who are here tonight, in the chat, thank you. I want you to hashtag and pass around Ember's report all over the place.
Yes.
Spread that like peanut butter. Because people need to know there's a real history. And Ember, girl, you went in. And I'm here for it. But that's the same thing with all of this. This is an important resource. Bumblebee, thank you for letting us be a part of it. Get in here. Because we got to wrap up.
Come on in.
But no, thank you for this because this is important. And I want to pass out to all. I want to pass a note to all the people who are in the Open of Transposition Sports. We got a seat waiting for you to come on here to Transpositions. I say we just open the door. Hey, Chris. Hey, Mosier. Come on in here.
Yeah. Come on Chris. Get in here.
Colin Fox, you get in here.
Chris Mosier leads an organization called Athlete Ally, and he's a trans man who is a track and field person. He was on the U.S. national team. Yeah, he was on the U.S. national team a bit ago, and still competing and passionate advocate for his sport as well. So
was I right about Chris? By the way, was Chris in in your little video? Was he the cyclist?
Okay, well I'm gonna say who was in it. First shot was Chris Mosier.
I got another one.
Colin Fox. Shot three, Dr. Veronica Ivy, winning her second championship.
Yeah.
The fourth shot, Pat Manuel. In fact, that was Pat in his first fight back, getting that beautiful knockdown. So let me see. I'm at the fourth shot now. Yeah, I'm at the fourth shot. Fifth shot, Leah Thomas. And that's when I got to see her perform in person, dual meet between Harvard and Penn. Okay. Sixth shot, Austin Killips at Cyclocross Nationals back in 22. Putting it on the podium. And there's another example of a governing body who got scared, heard footsteps. The UCI's ban on transgender women, I call it the Austin Killips rule. They institute that ban just because Austin won one race, and it was a lower level professional race. And all of a sudden people got scared because they said Austin Killips can win the Tour de France. If Austin Killips at the time could survive the Tour de France, kudos to her. I don't think y'all realize but it shows people who don't really know women's sports don't realize how competitive it is. I mean, Tour de France Feminine is no joke. You gotta be serious. I mean, that's a whole nother level up in talent. Okay, seventh shot, yours truly. Seven shot, carrying the ball, directing the traffic, that is yours truly. The eighth shot, Scott Percy, aka the world's strongest trans man. He's a power lifter, and he's back at it after a year. Recouping from injury, he's back at it, and he says he's stronger than ever. That's a person we want to get on Transposition.
Get it, King.
And of course, last shot, Alana McLaughlin.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not just any shot. Whenever I feel down or feel worried, I put in the tape of her fight, and I go right to that shot of her bringing the trans flag out. Because at that time, that's a visual that we needed to see. And every time I see that, it fires me up. And also, I like the T-shirt so much I bought it. Yeah, shout out to Dark Light Clothing. Hey, Dark Light, Transpositions, little sponsorship thing. Hashtag just saying. But that's who was
here.
in the open, and all those
There you go.
people. I mean, these are all people that really put their even the one playing football. I mean, whoever she is. These are people or more accurately, I couldn't get on. I got on that field because I was inspired by all these other people you saw, and inspired by people like Stephanie, who's been at it in her sport for a long time, and is very much a hero. And I'm going to give you your flowers right now because of what you're doing, and in fact, I think you need to speak out even more because your sport is coming to you and saying, we want to run what we want to do by you. I mean, sailing's actually doing it the way you ought to do it. Talk to people. If you want to build trans policy, talk to trans people.
Yep.
It's not hard. Really isn't.
All right, ladies. Let's do final thoughts, then we'll do some plugs. What we got coming up on tonight's episode. I just want to give commentary on each of your segments again. I'm with both you all with Praise and Ember's deep dive. Holy crap! I just watched the first few minutes of it just to make sure that everything was good. So a lot of that was fresh to me while I was producing it. So great stuff. I did not expect that much of a deep dive. Yeah, Carly always bringing the news on the sports. Thank you so much for that well documented week in trans sports, and then Steph coming in with just some thoughts on the whole thing. So I appreciate everybody for helping me build this channel, and hopefully we continue to grow. We're approaching 150 now. Come spread the word about the transpositions. We're out here. We're the voice. We want to be your voice. We want to share your message. Send us join the Discord server. Send us your thoughts. Send us the things that you want to see us reporting on. Let us know. Again, I've said this last time that we did a show. We can't keep our finger on every pulse all at the same time. So having your input and your contribution means the world. All right, passing the torch over to Miss Stephanie Helms.
Yeah, come on by. Come on by. Drop some ideas for. I'm going to drop the link to the an invitation to the.
The Discord server
in here. Yeah, we've got some good resources. It's a bunch of a lot of people ask me about peer-reviewed studies and papers. A lot of in my work for U.S. Sailing, I compiled an awful lot of stuff about sports. But there's other stuff there. The pinned link is a link to the Harry S. Benjamin, the WPATH Standards of Care version 8 that's in effect right now for those people who think this is a free-for-all in terms of trans medical care. A whole bunch of stuff on trans medical care, a whole bunch of stuff on trans life and psychology and stuff. And that's in a section called publications, and it's publications and papers and books we like and stuff. We've got a place where you can recommend stuff to us for the show, things that we ought to know about, things you'd like to see us cover. There's sections for you to talk one-on-one with any of the anchors. Come join us, and we've got a general chat room to shoot the breeze and stuff. So come on by and help build that up too. We think that could be a pretty good resource, both in support of the show and in support of the community as a whole. So yeah, please do interact that way if you mind. So as for me, coming up for me on Saturday, I'm gonna be on Skeptic Haven's Women Atheists Unload, topic to be decided. We're just trying to put this thing together at this point in time, but I'm not really sure how it's all gonna work out. but I might not be there because boats are launching on Saturday, so it's getting to be that time of year.
Busy
Time to get back at it.
season. Busy season for our sailor, and if there comes times or days where we're not going to be able to have Steph live on Transpositions, we'll try to get some pre-recorded content, or I'll just go yoink something from her channel, because I don't know if y'all knew this, but Steph has her own channel that she won't plug for some reason, and she also covers a lot of trans sports topics, so and other stuff too, a lot of just queer culture topics and history, and go check it out. It's good stuff. I just I know she won't plug her own channel, so I'm going to do it for her. And Carly has a channel too, and other sports programs that she's working with that I'm absolutely happy to help support. So go ahead, Carly. What do you got going on?
Well, pretty much the biggest thing I'm doing is continuing to, on the programming end, continuing to massage and finesse transposition sports, make it even better and better, get some more content. We're gonna have a lot of things coming up in the weeks ahead. There's gonna be a lot of interesting things coming up. So I'd stick with us here. For myself, Saturday, back on the field again. This time we're on the upper portion of New England this week. We've got, the Connecticut Ambush travel up to Manchester to take on the New Hampshire Rebellion. It's the Rebellion have had a rough go just to get to the first game, because they had a game scheduled and they got canceled because the team folded. They had another game scheduled for another reason. It got scrapped. They got scrapped as well. So it turns out that this game was supposed to be later in the year down in Delaware, but the Delaware team folded. So because the Delaware team folded, they had to figure out a game, and then the league got back to us and said, "Hey, you guys do you want to play the Rebellion in New Hampshire, make it a home game?" It's like, okay. So we're heading up to Manchester. We're going to play the Rebellion is another tough physical team, very much like the Maine Mayhem, who themselves, again, tough physical team. And I can tell you this, that it was a tough physical football game. They're a tough team. I look forward to playing them again. However, we play them at home on June 8th, but we got a ways to go to get there. We're trying to get that record up to 2-1. We'll get it 2-1. We're going to see what we can do, but we know it's going to be a tall assignment. It's a good football team up there, and they're going to be fresh, and they're going to be eager to play. So we have to bring our intensity to the match theirs to have a shot. But yeah, it's Saturday night, 6:30 kickoff in Manchester. Hey, if you happen to be in the area, come out and see it. And because remember, everyone watches women's sports. So come on out.
All right. Oh, and before we close up, I do want to say that I do have plans for the Transpositions. Has great plans for, because you know what next month is, guys? It's Pride Month. So one thing that we do have lined up, I believe, unless something shifts gears majorly, is we're going to launch the Patreon on June 1st. So if you want to get it on the ground floor, there's going to be special perks for that to be announced. But if you want to get on the ground floors of the Patreon, you will get certain special perks and privileges that no one else ever will get. But it's only going to be for the first launch. Okay, if you enroll in June, you'll have special privilege. You'll have these special privileges. I won't give you any details right now, but because we do need to sort things out among the anchors. But yeah, we're going to make the Patreon launch fun, and we're going to make it a whole Pride Month thing. So, and there's going to be unique content and things available out there. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us tonight for the Transpositions Weekly. I'm Bree McCune.
I'm
Carly Chardonnay Webb.
All right.
And Ember's not here, but she's Ember Belrad.
She's Ember Belrad. And you all have a good night. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Night, everyone.
Riley Gaines, American transphobe. Riley Gaines is there. It's been 2 years, she's still jealous of Leah, and the trophies both look the same. Showed her transphobic ass for all to see, and Leah Thomas lives in her head rent-free. Riley, a real American transphobe. Riley Gaines is there.